Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're tackling something near and dear to, well, pretty much everyone. Bread.
Bread, huh?
Bread.
Uh-huh.
But not just any bread, right? Like, is it really the dietary demon some folks make it out to be? We've got this research paper that really digs into it. We're going to unpack that, separate fact from fiction, all that good stuff.
10,000 years humans have been eating bread. That's a long time.
Exactly. So where'd this whole bread is bad thing even come from? The paper mentions all these online sources, really laying on the doom and gloom about bread and health.
You see those headlines, kind of makes you think twice about that sandwich.
Right. But Cumberland, like hypertension and diabetes, blaming those solely on bread.
Way too simple. Genetics, lifestyle, what you eat overall. It's complicated.
So bread's not the only culprit. But hey, good diet's got to talk fiber. What's the deal with fiber? And does bread even have any?
Oh, fiber's key. Digestion, feeling full, stable blood sugar. It's like a sponge, soaks things up in your gut. And get this, just 2 slices of whole wheat. That's like 15% of your daily fiber needs right there.
Wait, seriously? 15%? I had no clue.
Yep. And we're supposed to aim for about 25 grams of fiber per day, right?
So bread can actually help us get there.
You got it. And not just any fiber, it's the mix that matters. Soluble, insoluble. Whole wheat bread's got a good balance of both.
Hold on, back up a sec. Soluble, insoluble. What's the difference?
Soluble that dissolves in water, helps with cholesterol and blood sugar. Think of it like a gel. Insoluble, that's more about keeping things moving, preventing constipation.
Okay, so different fibers, different jobs. Got to get the right mix.
And whole grains, that's where you find that good mix.
All right, let's talk carbs. The big scary C word. Bread's got to be loaded with those, right? But are all carbs created equal?
Ah, you're onto something there. Simple carbs, think candy, soda, they hit your system fast. Sugar spike, then crash. Makes you tired, craving more sugar.
Those are the bad boys we're trying to avoid.
Exactly. But complex carbs, now those are different. They release energy slowly, keeps your blood sugar steady. Whole grains, beans, starchy veggies, those are your friends.
So like that feeling of being full and energized after oatmeal or whole wheat toast, that's the good carbs at work.
Bingo. And bread, especially whole grain, that's packed with them.
So bread can be a good source of carbs. That seems, I don't know, kind of backwards from everything we hear.
It's all about choosing the right kind of bread, looking past those overly simple headlines.
Okay, making more sense now. Now, can't avoid this one. Gluten. Everyone's talking about it. Is it really that big of a deal?
It's gotten a lot of attention, but gotta remember, those disorders, celiac, gluten sensitivity, they only affect a small portion of people.
So for most of us, gluten's not the enemy. It's funny though, gluten-free is like a trend now.
It is, but going gluten-free when you don't need to, those products can be less nutritious. Kind of ironic.
Yeah, it's not a magic health fix, right?
Nope. Gotta look past the labels, see what's really in the food. And speaking of ingredients, let's talk oils. They're in bread, right?
Yeah, and there's all this talk about vegetable oils, trans fats. Are they really that bad?
Trans fats. Those are definitely linked to heart problems. But good news is, margarine today, they've cut way back on trans fats, use healthier fats now.
So not all oils are the bad guys.
Not at all. Olive oil, canola oil, those are actually good for your heart. The Mediterranean diet, they use a lot of olive oil, and that's one of the healthiest ways to eat.
Okay, so maybe bread can be part of a heart-healthy diet if you choose the right
Yes,
kind.
you're getting it. It's about the bigger picture, your whole eating pattern.
One more thing before we move on.
Right.
All this talk about ultra-processed foods being bad. Is bread one of those?
Great question. Whole grain bread, not ultra-processed. Think of those as the heavily modified stuff, loads of added sugars, unhealthy fats, artificial stuff, the works. Low on nutrients, high on things we don't need.
So the snack cakes, the sugary cereals, that's what we're avoiding.
Exactly. Some white breads might be considered processed, but whole grain, especially the simpler kinds, they're whole foods, minimally processed.
Phew, good to know.
Hmm.
So whole grain bread, not the enemy. But what is it about whole grains that makes them so good for us? It's more than just the fiber, right?
No, they are packed with good stuff. Vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, all playing a role in keeping you healthy.
Like, give us the specifics. What kind of vitamins are we talking?
B vitamins for energy, nerves, all sorts of cellular stuff. And minerals, iron, magnesium, selenium, zinc, the list goes on.
Wow, it's like a multivitamin in a slice of bread.
And here's the kicker. Research shows that whole grains actually lower your risk of getting some serious diseases.
No way. What kind of diseases?
Heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, even certain cancers, especially colon cancer.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah.
So just by eating more whole grains, we can lower our risk of getting these diseases.
It's pretty amazing the power of whole foods, right?
Definitely. But what is it about them that's so protective? Is it just the fiber or what?
It's a combo deal. Fiber's a big part, regulates blood sugar, lowers cholesterol, keeps your gut happy. But whole grains also have these antioxidants, phytochemicals, all these fancy names, and they fight inflammation and disease.
So it's like all those things working together create this super-powered health food.
Exactly. And that's why choosing whole grains whenever you can makes such a difference. They've got so much more to offer than refined grains, which have lost a lot of those good nutrients during processing.
Okay, I'm sold. Whole grains it is. But let's be real, lots of people still love their white bread. It's soft, familiar, easy to find. Is white bread really that bad for you?
It's not like poison or anything, but it's definitely less nutritious compared to whole grain.
So what's the main difference between the two? We know whole wheat's got the whole grain kernel, but what about white bread?
White bread, they take out the bran and the germ when they make it. Those are the parts with the most nutrients. You're basically left with mostly starch.
So more carbs, less of the good stuff like fiber and vitamins.
Yep. And since white bread doesn't have that fiber, it hits your blood sugar faster.
That's not good for people with diabetes or those trying to manage their weight.
Exactly. Even if they add back some vitamins, it's still not the same as the whole grain package.
So like a sugary juice versus a smoothie. They both have calories, but the smoothie's way better for you.
That's the idea. Choose those nutrient-packed foods. They're the real deal.
All right, so whole wheat beats white bread in the nutrition department. But if whole grains are so much better, why do people still go for white bread? What's the story there?
That's a good question, and there are a few reasons. Historically, white bread was seen as a luxury, something for the wealthy.
Oh, interesting, like a status symbol.
Exactly. And those perceptions can take time to change. Plus, white bread, it's often softer, milder flavor. Some people just prefer that.
Yeah, I get that. There's something comforting about that soft, fluffy texture.
And let's not forget, it's everywhere. It's cheap. It goes with everything.
All right, it's a classic for a reason. But what if, and this is a big what if, we could have the best of both worlds, like the taste and ease of white bread, but with all the good stuff from whole grains? Would that change things?
Now that's where things get really exciting. Scientists are actually working on making a white bread that's as nutritious as whole wheat.
Wait, are you serious? How is that even possible?
It's cutting-edge research. The goal is to make a white bread that people who love the taste and texture will actually eat, but that's also packed with all those nutrients from whole grains.
It's like having your cake and eating it too.
Yeah.
Or, well, your bread. So how are they doing this? What's the secret?
It's not easy. They're adding things like legumes, peas, and chickpeas to up the protein and fiber. They're trying out different grains, quinoa, sorghum, millet. And here's the key. They're adding back specific parts of the wheat bran, the stuff that usually gets taken out to make white flour.
So they're basically putting back the good stuff. But haven't people tried this before? Weren't those high-fiber white breads kind of a flop?
Yeah, those didn't always taste or feel that great. Too dense, kind of bitter.
Yeah, who wants a brick for a sandwich? So how is this research different?
This is way more precise. It's not just throwing bran in there. It's about choosing the right parts and adding them in a way that doesn't mess up the texture and taste of white bread. They're experimenting with lots of combos to find what works best.
So it's a balancing act, making it healthy, but still keeping that white bread goodness.
You got it. And they're making progress. Some of their early versions have a bit more crunch, but they still look and taste like white bread.
So it's like a subtle upgrade, not a total makeover.
Exactly. And they think they can make it even closer to regular white bread while making it way healthier.
Wow, that's amazing. Imagine eating your favorite white bread, but knowing you're getting all those good nutrients.
Yeah.
It would be a game changer for so many people.
It really shows how much potential there is for changing our food for the better. It's about making healthy choices easier for everyone, no matter what they like.
I'm super curious to see what comes out of this research. It could really bridge that gap between taste and health. But for now, let's switch gears a bit. We talked about the glycemic index earlier, remember?
Yeah.
That GI thing? I think we need to dig into that a little more.
Definitely. Understanding the glycemic index can really help people make smarter food choices, especially if they're watching their blood sugar.
Right, so this glycemic index, or GI, sounds a bit science-y. Break it down for us. What's the deal?
Basically, it tells you how fast a food with carbs in it makes your blood sugar go up.
Okay, so higher GI means a bigger spike. And we know those spikes aren't good.
Exactly. They mess with your energy, your mood, and over time. Not good for things like insulin resistance, could even lead to type 2 diabetes.
Yikes. So whole wheat bread, with its lower GI, wins again because of the fiber.
Bingo. Fiber's like the brakes on your blood sugar. It slows down how fast that glucose gets absorbed.
Okay, that makes sense.
Right.
So if I'm trying to keep my energy steady, avoid those crashes, I should pick foods with a lower GI, like whole wheat bread.
You got it. One piece of the puzzle. But combine that with all the other good stuff in whole grains, the vitamins, minerals, those antioxidants, it all adds up.
Makes those whole grains even more appealing. But white bread, it's just so easy. How do we make those healthier choices, the whole grain choices, more appealing to everyone?
That's the tricky part. It's not just about the food itself, right? It's history, culture, what we grew up with. All those things play a role.
Yeah, we talked about white bread being a status symbol back in the day. And for a lot of people, it's just what they know, what they're used to. Hard to change those habits.
You said it. Plus, white bread, gotta admit, it's convenient, it's everywhere, it's cheap, goes with pretty much anything.
No argument there. But that's why that research on making a healthier white bread is so interesting. What if you didn't have to choose?
Right. Imagine, same taste, same convenience, but with all the benefits of whole wheat. That could be huge.
Until then, got to work with what we've got. Any practical tips for getting more of those good whole grains into our diets?
Small steps. If you're a white bread fan, maybe try swapping in whole wheat once or twice a week. Just to start.
Easy enough. Anything else?
Look for labels that say 100% whole wheat or 100% whole grain. That way you're getting the whole package. And don't be afraid to try different grains. Oats, quinoa, barley, brown rice.
Oh, what about sourdough? I've heard good things about that, even if it's not 100% whole wheat.
Sourdough's great. It's fermented, which actually helps your body absorb the nutrients better.
Really? So even a white sourdough might be a step up.
Could be. And hey, it's not just bread. Add oats to your smoothies, swap white rice for brown rice or quinoa, use whole wheat pasta, lots of options.
Good stuff. So many simple swaps to try. But let's be honest, taste matters. And whole wheat bread, well, it doesn't always have the best reputation in the flavor department.
True, it's got its own taste, a bit nuttier, earthier. But here's the thing, our taste buds can change.
So if I keep trying it, I might actually start to like it.
You never know. And there are ways to make it taste better. Find brands that use good quality grains. The texture's not as rough. And don't forget toasting.
Toasting is the best. Fixes everything. But what about all those other breads out there? The baguettes, the croissants, the focaccia. They're not whole wheat, but they're still part of a good diet.
Hey, I love a good baguette too. And there's room for all of that. It's all about balance, not deprivation.
So it's not about saying never to those yummy treats.
Exactly. Food should be enjoyable, not something you stress over. A healthy diet is one you can actually stick with, not something that feels like a punishment.
Love that. Finding that middle ground where taste and good nutrition meet. But before we wrap this whole bread thing up, got to ask about the history, the culture. It's such a universal food, been around forever, right?
Oh, bread's got stories for days.
Yeah.
It's more than just food. It's a symbol in so many cultures. Sustenance, community, even spirituality.
Wow, so it's a cultural icon.
Absolutely. From ancient Egypt to, well, your local bakery today, bread has always been there.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell us more about this bread history. Where did it all start?
We're talking way back, like 10,000 years ago, the Neolithic era. Archaeologists have found these old grinding stones, ovens. It shows that people were already figuring out how to work with grains and bake.
That's mind-blowing. So bread's been around almost as long as we've been farming. What did that ancient bread even look like? Probably not like what we eat today.
Yeah, more like flatbreads, made from rough ground grains, cooked on hot stones, maybe in basic clay ovens. Not the soft, fluffy stuff we're used to, but it did the job.
Amazing to think how much it's changed over time. Any major breakthroughs in bread history?
Discovering leavening, that was huge. Using yeast to make bread rise. That's how we got from those flatbreads to those amazing airy loaves we see today.
So that's the secret to that fluffy texture. When did that happen, the leavening thing?
The ancient Egyptians were way ahead of the game. They figured out the yeast thing and came up with all sorts of baking techniques, even made leavened loaves.
So bread masters of the ancient world. Did those Egyptian bread secrets spread?
Big time. Bread making spread all over, each culture adding their own twist, their own traditions.
So it's not just about technology, it's about culture too, right?
Absolutely. Sharing knowledge, traditions, all through the magic of bread.
Okay, this is getting really interesting. What about those breads we associate with certain places? French baguettes, San Francisco sourdough, Indian naan, how'd those come about?
Each one's got a story. Climate, ingredients, cultural quirks all play a role.
All right, give us the bread world tour. Starting with the baguette, how did it become so French?
The baguette, that long, crusty loaf, that's actually pretty recent, early 1900s Paris. There's a bunch of theories, but one says it was because of, get this, regulations. Bakers had to have bread ready by a certain time, and those long, skinny loaves, they baked faster.
No way. So the baguette was born from deadlines.
That's the story, but now it's more than just convenient, right? It's the French bread.
Totally. And it's not just in France anymore. You see baguettes everywhere.
Okay, sourdough time. It's super popular now, especially in the US. Why the sourdough craze? Sourdough's got history too, way back to ancient Egypt even. It uses those wild yeasts, bacteria that are naturally in flour and water. That's what gives it that tangy flavor and chewy texture.
So it's a natural leavening. But why is it so trendy, NOW?
People are getting into artisanal foods, going back to those older ways of doing things. They want more flavor, more interesting textures. Sourdough checks those boxes.
Makes sense. It's like homemade, authentic, not just factory made.
And some people think sourdough's easier to digest because of that fermentation process. Breaks down some of the gluten and things that can be tough on the gut.
So even if it's not whole wheat, sourdough might have some advantages.
Exactly. And let's not forget, it's delicious. That tangy flavor, great for toast, sandwiches, pizza crusts.
You convinced me you got to try some sourdough. Okay, last stop, India. Naan bread. What's the deal with that?
Naan, that soft, pillowy flatbread. It's cooked in a tandoor, a special clay oven. And they brush with ghee, sometimes butter, gives it a super rich flavor.
So kind of like a flatbread and a pizza crust. Had a baby.
Yeah, kind of. It's perfect for scooping up curries and all those amazing Indian dishes.
It's usually white flour, right?
Traditionally, yes. But there are some whole wheat versions popping up.
So maybe not the healthiest bread, but definitely delicious and culturally important. It's really cool to see how bread's been adapted in so many different ways around the world.
It's a blank canvas, right? Sweet, savory, simple, fancy, everyday food, special occasion. Bread can do it all.
Well, I feel like I've learned so much. We've busted myths, talked science, traveled through time. Bread is way more interesting than I thought.
Glad to hear it. Hopefully our listeners are feeling a bit more breaducated now, too.
Totally. They've got all the info they need to make good choices about their bread. Who knows, maybe we've even sparked a little bread baking inspiration.
Maybe a future deep dive on baking. But for now, let's just appreciate all this new bread knowledge.
And on that note, we're going to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Bread Talk soon. Welcome back, everyone. Okay, gotta admit, after all that bread talk, I am seriously craving a nice crusty loaf. Maybe some olive oil and balsamic for dipping.
Sounds amazing. And now you can really appreciate all the layers, right? Not just the taste, but all that science, history, culture we've been talking about.
Totally. Before we wrap up, though, I want to go back to that research on a healthier white bread. Like, imagine if you could have that soft, fluffy bread, BUT, with the same good stuff as whole wheat.
Right. Best of both worlds. The taste people love, but without the guilt, knowing you're actually getting those nutrients.
It would be huge for so many people. But here's the thing. Can they really make white bread as nutritious as whole wheat? Like, truly replicate all that complexity?
That's the big question. Whole grains, they've got this whole orchestra of nutrients working together. It's not just about adding a vitamin here or a mineral there.
So it's not just enriching it, it's about rebuilding that whole network of nutrients that makes whole grains so powerful.
Exactly. And that's where it gets tricky. They're looking at adding back those bran layers, even trying other grains and legumes, seeing if they can mimic that whole wheat profile.
It's like culinary engineering, building a better bread from the ground up.
Pretty much. And it can't just be healthy, right? It has to taste good, too.
Of course. Nobody's going to eat healthy bread if it tastes like cardboard. But imagine if they could actually pull it off. A white bread that's just as tasty, but just as good for you as whole wheat.
That would be revolutionary. It could change how we think about bread, even have a real impact on public health.
It'd be like the ultimate healthy food hack, sneaking in those good nutrients without even noticing.
Exactly. Making healthy choices the easy choice for everyone.
So even though it's early days, this research is super exciting. It really shows what's possible when science and food come together.
For sure. Human ingenuity at its best.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything bread-related. Myths, science, history, even the future of bread. What a journey.
It's been fun. Hopefully our listeners are feeling a little more bread-wise now.
Totally. They've got the knowledge, they can make good choices, maybe even try baking some bread themselves.
Ooh, another deep dive topic right there. But for now, Let's just enjoy all we've learned.
I know I will. I'm seeing bread in a whole new light now. It's not just food, it's a story, a science, an art.
Absolutely. So next time you're holding a loaf, whether it's a fancy baguette or a simple sandwich bread, remember everything that went into it.
The farmers who grew the grain, the bakers who worked their magic, all those traditions passed down over time.
And know that bread can be a part of a healthy, happy life. It's about choices, being mindful, enjoying the good stuff.
And that, everyone, is what the deep dive is all about. Exploring, learning, and giving you the info you need to make your own choices.
Happy eating, everyone!
Until next time.